And we are live. Hi, everyone. Hello. Hi,
Hello.
Salvo. You're the first one to comment. Hello. Where are you from, Salvatore or Salvo? Yeah, let us know in the comments your name, what city you're writing to us from. We got Marco. Hello, Marco. Fabio from Turin. Fantastic. Hello, hello. So while you guys introduce yourselves, Michelle and I will also do a brief introduction. We know that you guys are joining us from all over the country, maybe some of you from outside Italy as well. So we're both teachers from one of the schools in Milan. My name is Thiago. I am from Brazil originally. That's where the name and the pronunciation come from. But I spent many years in California as well before moving to Italy. And I've been with my yes since 2016. So I've been here for quite a while now. And that's it. I'll let Michelle introduce herself as well.
Hello, everyone. My name is Michelle. I come from Pakistan. I've been in Milan for about three and a half years now. It's been a while, and all good so far, except for being, shut down and locked down. Apart from that, all good.
Yeah, exactly. It's been a bit difficult now, but we can do this. We all have to be strong, be responsible people, and stay at home as much as possible. So, all right, we have people joining us from all over, from Brianza, Milan, Bologna, Naples. A couple more people from Milan, Turin, Rome. All right, guys, really nice. Nice to
This is this
have
is
everyone here.
exciting.
Yeah, wonderful. So we hope everyone's doing well. You guys are not too bored at home. Actually, I'm curious. So, what activities, what kind of things have you guys been up to these last few days? What about you, Michelle? What have you been doing to not lose your mind, being cooped up for so long?
Well, firstly, I have been working on some new focus material.
Ah,
So that's been fun. And, you work with presentations. So PowerPoint takes up a lot of time and concentration. So I'm happy to say I've been kept busy. I have been trying to keep active though, not just keep busy. So I've started working out at home because obviously you cannot go to the park and you should not go to the gym.
oh, definitely not the
So
gym. Yes.
so I've been doing that just to keep active. How about you, Tiago?
I definitely have not been active. Today, I shared in our school group my activities. I was checking my phone because your phone tends to track how many kilometers or how many steps you take in one day. And so, just to share this with you guys, so this was before the coronavirus outbreak, and this is right after. So, as you can tell, I have not been very active. I've been home a lot. What have I been doing? I've been watching some Netflix. I also, I've been playing The Last of Us on the PlayStation, which took me a while to start, and I finally decided to buy the game and finish it, which was interesting. And also, the whole topic of the game is about like an infection, and so it was kind of
Ooh.
yeah related to real life. It felt like in some ways, but also been cooking a lot. Yeah, that's been about it, really.
Well, our students are writing in. Giordana says she's studying, doing exercises, and cooking a lot. Fantastic. Mauro says he's cooking and cleaning the house.
Hmm.
Remember the article, The House? Um, Fabio Lapo says studying English, doing homework for my ass, and watching a lot of films. Well,
Great.
good on you, Fabio. Super proud of you.
Yeah.
Pasquale says, hi. Beatrice, reading and cleaning. Everybody seems to be doing a lot of that, myself included. Are you indulging in some cleaning?
I have done a little bit of cleaning, yes. Not too much, but yes. I think everyone else has been more productive than me, honestly, reading all the comments. I've just been like really lazy.
No, I think everyone feels that way. Good job, Matea, not going to the gym. Good
Good.
job. Whoa, Salvatore,
Oh,
which
so you've actually been working.
what do you do, Salvatore? Do you work in medicine? Are you part of the medical heroes saving Italy?
Yeah, medical, or I guess like supermarkets. Those, I guess, are the main things open right now, huh? And
Yeah,
Roberta, I guess, she's been studying, reading, cleaning as well, watching Netflix. Uh, all right, guys, fantastic. Very nicely done. And sleep a lot, yes.
yeah,
Especially, I don't know about you, Michelle, but I've been sleeping in. So in English, we
yeah.
have this phrasal verb, to sleep in, which basically
Mm.
means to sleep until late. Julia, she's been reading Harry Potter. Yes.
Oh wow, I love Harry
Oh
Potter.
my
One
gosh,
of
me
my
too. You know,
all-time
I
favorites.
just got like a Harry Potter little doll for my birthday a few weeks ago. I'm like so happy about it. I got it in my room. That's really cool, Julia. And Salvatore, oh, he works for a big, like a chemical, I guess a chemical company. Yeah, chemical, right? 'Cause
Chemical.
chemistry is the subject that you study.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, folks. Fantastic. So thanks for sharing your activities. Keep them coming. We'll check the comments as they come. Let's see. We have Mauro says, you're already using a conditional. There you go. If I could go out, I would walk, but I can't. So I'm listening to you. And there you go. Nice conditional as well. That's exactly what we're talking about today, guys, with what would you do? So let's jump in here. So we know that the conditionals can be a little bit tricky sometimes because we have many different conditionals. Today we'll be focusing on two in particular, basically all the hypothetical conditionals. So the second conditional and also the third conditional. Now, so the example that Mauro gave us here, if I could go to work, I would walk, blah, blah, blah. So that's an example of the second conditional. Michelle, do you want to tell them when we use the second conditional?
So, let's start with the first conditional so we have a good comparison,
Sure.
right? So whenever we use the first conditional, we use it for things that are probably likely to happen. So we use it for probable events and possible consequences. Fantastic, Margot. He's beat me to it. The second conditional is used for hypothetical situations and their possible consequences.
Exactly. So the second conditional is for hypothetical situations, as Mauro said. However, one thing that sometimes students get confused is because we do use the past simple, as we will see in just a little bit on the slides. We use the past simple to form the second conditional, but it is something that is related to the present or the future, okay? So it's actually not about the past. That will be the third conditional. But we'll go step by step here, so hopefully it should all be clear by the end. Okay, so excellent job, guys. Thank you. So we'll be seeing this. We'll be looking at the second and third conditional and asking and answering questions about hypothetical situations. We will ask you guys at some point to ask us questions, both in the second and third conditionals. So you can already start thinking about some things you might want to ask us.
Fantastic work, Donne Medico.
Wonderful. Situations in present and future. Fantastic. So that's it. You guys already answered this question, basically. So here is the structure. So if, past simple, would, and then the infinitive. Here are some examples. Do you want to read them, Michelle, these examples?
Sure. Okay, so first we need to mention that whenever we see the word EG written like this, we don't pronounce it EG. We usually say for example, right?
Yes.
Okay, moving on. If I won the lottery, I would sail around the world. If I could live anywhere, I would live in New York. If I were taller, I would play basketball.
Exactly. So you can see here, guys, especially in the if part, you can really see the hypothetical part of it. Okay, so what does it mean exactly when something is hypothetical? Well, the first example, if I won the lottery, that is highly unlikely to happen. There is a very, very slim chance, very small chance of winning the lottery. So if a situation is not probable, or if it is impossible, for example, okay, for me at least the third one, I'm not growing anymore. So if I were taller, that is not happening. I will not be taller. This is it for me. So if it's improbable, if it's impossible, we would use the second conditional. But it can also be used for things that are a little bit more like realistic in a certain way, but I just never considered before. Okay, so don't think that it has to be necessarily some crazy situation. Okay, for instance, let's say Michelle and I, we own a business together and we are struggling to have clients. We could have a meeting to talk about possibilities, and Michelle might say, okay, Thiago, if we invested in a marketing campaign, we would have more customers. So see, investing in a marketing campaign is not something impossible, it's not improbable, but it's something we haven't thought about. So if you're considering it for the first time, we would also use the second conditional. Okay?
That's a really good distinction. It's
Yeah, isn't it?
important to know because sometimes we do get confused about that, right? We often get confused between hypothetical and impossible. And sometimes it is possible, it's just a rare situation.
Exactly. Francesco, you have a great question. I probably said this one, if I was taller. You're right. That is incorrect. A lot of native speakers will say, if I was, and I really shouldn't as a teacher. But yes, verb to be in the second conditional is always were. So if I were taller. Okay, so thanks for the correction. Beatrice gave us another example. If I had more money, oh, why is it? Okay, if I had more money, oh, it keeps disappearing. All right, if I had more money, I would travel all over the world. Exactly. Uh,
Perfect.
Don Medico says Lucy. Ah, that's your name, Lucy. Okay. If you bought a bike, you would lose weight first. Yes. Yeah, if you bought and then you corrected the spelling. Yeah. Fantastic.
Good work.
Exactly, guys. Perfect. So, seems like you guys got this okay. Let's have a quick look at some examples here. So, maybe you guys can answer some of these questions as well. So, the first one,
Absolutely, Roberta.
what does she
If
say?
I were a boy, just like
Ah,
the Taylor Swift
yes,
song.
exactly. If I were a boy.
I love that you know that.
uh, all right. So, the first question, guys, is what would you do if you won $1 million in the lottery, but you had to spend it all in 10 days? So what would you do? Or if you prefer to answer another question, we have a couple more. What would you do if you had the chance to travel around the world with all expenses paid for 7 days, but you would lose your job in the meantime? So would you accept it or not? And what would you do if you left something in a locked building? So see, the third one is a perfect example of what we said before of a situation that isn't necessarily impossible, but you're just imagining it. So let us know in the comments what you think. I'll ask Michelle one of them just to practice. Michelle, what would you do if you left something in a locked building? Hello?
Hi, I just sorry, I lost
Oh, you
everything.
lost
Everyone's
connection
back
for a
now.
second? Okay, good.
Yeah,
No, I was just asking you, just as an example, what would you do if you left something in a locked building?
Oh, that's actually a really good one to ask me, because I actually have left something in a locked building, and I got them to open the building.
Aha.
So when I would find someone to open the building when I was in high school. I think last year of high school, my dad had just given me a phone, a brand new mobile phone for my birthday, and I was in the mall, and I left it, and we were the last to leave the mall, and I left it in the mall, and I knew exactly where it was. It was underneath a cushion, so I begged and I pleaded and I cried until the guard felt bad for me. And he opened the main door of the mall, the main entrance, and I managed to quickly get my phone and run out.
Oh, good. And it was there.
It was right there because we
Oh,
were
nice.
the last to clear out.
Uh-huh. Okay, so it was a
Okay,
happy
we
end.
have our
Yeah, we
student.
have
It
lots of
was a happy
examples.
ending.
Okay, so
Okay,
let's have
Sarah
a look at
said,
these examples. Oh, Sarah, she's joining us. She's working from home. All right, welcome, Sarah.
okay, Robbie says, if I won $1 million, I would travel the world.
Mhm.
Fantastic.
I would just switch. I would
But
only travel the world instead of I only would.
Julia says, if I won $1 million, I would buy some houses. Smart.
Yes. If you're
Invest
Milan,
that
you can only
money.
buy half a house.
If I won $1 million, I would buy a lot of supercars. Emanuele. A supercar, would that be a very fast car?
Or maybe a Batmobile, like a superhero car.
Pierre Luigi says, if I won $1 million in the lottery, I would buy a football team. Oh,
Ah,
that's a good one. Now we're talking. Fabio says, if I won $1 million in the lottery, I would spend it to acquire a house. That's a
nice
good
words.
word, acquire.
Yeah.
Daniela would spend them all for a 10-day trip to the Maldives.
A very luxurious trip to the Maldives.
Definitely.
Oh yeah, because you have to spend it in
CCC
10 days. Yeah.
would buy a private jet. Fancy. But don't forget, jet fuel is also expensive, so save some money. Marco Barilla would buy a Ferrari. Okay,
All
fantastic.
right. So a lot of cars and planes and holidays, some investments there. We got a football team. So fantastic. What about you, Michelle? If you won the lottery, if you won $1 million and you had 10 days, what would you do with that money?
What would I do with that money? I'd invest it. I'd
Yeah, I
probably
think
buy a
that's what I would do
house.
as well.
Yeah, but I'd probably save some money. Not save, but invest some money in the stock market because I've always wanted to, dip my toes there, but never had enough surplus funds to do it.
Sure.
So I'd definitely be interested in trying that.
Cool.
How about
Wonderful.
you?
Me, yeah, I think I would do the same. I would probably buy some property, buy a house to live in, so I don't have to pay rent every month.
Hmm.
And then I would probably invest it. There isn't anything that I particularly want or need right now. For example, like a car. Living in a city like Milan, I definitely don't miss a car, for instance. So
True,
I
true.
wouldn't necessarily buy one, but I would definitely like have some nice go on some nice trips, and probably invest a lot of the rest.
You're so responsible.
Well, no, don't look at my bank account at the moment. Let's see. Francesco also said he would buy his favorite football team. What's your favorite football team, Francesco?
And Christina says that she would travel a lot. Andrea, moving on to the next question, says that he wouldn't accept the offer because he couldn't survive without his job. Fair enough, my friend. Fair
Yes.
enough.
Yeah. Good, guys. So, all right, you're all doing a fantastic job here with the second conditional. Here, let's actually make this a little more interesting then. How about you guys ask us some questions? So, think about some second conditional questions to ask us. So, just remember, you just have to invert them now. So, what would you do? Where would you go? How much money would you spend? Okay, so you can really have fun with these questions. It doesn't always have to be what would you do. Let us know. Oh, Francesco Foggia. Foggia, that's in Puglia, if I'm not mistaken. Cool. And their colors are, they're also red and black. Cool. And Salvatore, if I won $1 million, I would buy a record company to record all my. Oh, you're a singer, Salvatore. Very nice.
So, guys, as you ask us your questions, your second conditional questions, Tiago and I will ask each other questions.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think, Tiago?
Sounds great. Hit me with it. Let's go.
Okay. What would you do if you could fly?
Ooh, if I could fly, I would not buy a transportation pass every month. I
Oh,
would
that would be
fly to
economical.
work and I would wake up later than usual. I would sleep in. Michelle, what would be your strategy for a zombie apocalypse?
Oh, I've thought about this.
There you go.
I've watched a lot of end of the world movies with my brother, and I believe the best strategy is to hide. So
So
you
you would
gotta
hide.
pick up your, but intelligently. So you've got to figure out a way to survive until you can figure out how to kill them, right? Because you don't know how to kill them right at the beginning. So until then, you have to survive. So to survive, you have to hide. So you have to gather up some food, gather up some weapons, gather up some smart people. You don't want to be surrounded by people who are not smart because because that will be dangerous. Gather up food, yep. And you need to find someone who on your team who is someone who is smart, someone who is tough, and someone who is very calm. And then you go into survival, and then you figure out how to kill them. The best way would be to capture one of them, torture them, see what works, what doesn't work, and then go on the offensive.
Oh my gosh, I love how detailed it is. Like you really thought about this. That's
My
great.
brother and I have had several arguments on how to survive a zombie apocalypse.
Excellent. All right, we do have a couple questions. Let's see. So, Fabio, what would you do if you could be invisible?
Oh, I know
Oh
what I would do.
God, I would definitely mess with people. So to mess with people, it's like to kind of like to play a prank or to do, I don't know, like hit someone or I would mess with people, like throw objects to scare them. Uh, yeah, I wouldn't do anything creepy. I guess like people like usually that's the first thing that comes to mind. But yeah, I would definitely like have some fun like that. Do you want to answer the next one, Michelle, from Daniela?
Yeah. What would you do if you had more free time? I do not want any more free
Yeah,
time.
enough enough free time this week.
That's it. I'm over free time. I want to get back to work. I miss my colleagues. I miss my school.
Great. Yeah, so Lucy has just an example here. If I could fly for free, I would visit the whole world. Yes, perfect. All the world. That also works. It's fine. All right, I can do the next one. What would you do if you got lost in the forest? So we would say to get lost. That's a really good one. If I got lost in
Hmm.
the forest, I would try to establish my cardinal points, so I knew where north, south, east, and west are. Hopefully, I would have an idea of more or less where I am, so I could then head in the direction of the nearest town or a road to get out of there. Yeah, that's what I would do.
That's
All right.
really good. I would not know what to do. I would just
Yeah, that's like the ideal, but then in reality, yeah.
Ooh, Robbie, what would you do if you didn't have to work? Okay, if I didn't have to work as I am doing currently these days, I would do what I'm doing. I would read more, I would cook more, spend more time talking to my mom on the phone. Simple everyday things that you don't really have time for. Message that friend that is always wants to video call, but you never have the time. Things like that.
Great, cool. Yeah, Manuela has an interesting comment. I didn't know this. So the person who prepares everything for every I guess maybe terrifying event, for example, bunkers food, is called a prepper. I didn't know that, but yeah, it makes sense. Someone who preps, who prepares. So a prepper. Thanks, Emanuele. And Salvatore would like to visit Area 51. Yes, a lot of people last year were trying to visit it. And then we have,
Okay,
if
I
I
have
had a
a
lot of free
question for
time, I
you.
would sleep every time. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, I have a question for you. What would you do if you found out aliens were real?
Uh, I guess it depends a little bit on the circumstances. I would like to learn more about it. I would be fascinated to understand what kind of life form it is, if it's carbon based like ours or different. Yeah, it would be quite fascinating. I would like to just learn more about it. I don't think I'd be scared of it. Yeah, that'd be kind of cool.
Um,
Lucy, what would you do if you were me? Um, well, I don't
watch
know.
another focus activity?
Exactly. I would watch all of the 8 to 10 focuses every hour and practice my English. Good one, Michelle. Um, and oops, okay. Francesco, what would you do if you became the president of your country?
Ooh.
What would you do here, Michelle?
Well, if I became the president of my country, I would. Okay, so in my country, I believe education is not where it should be. So one of the first things I would do would have compulsory schooling from 1 to 12, and I would make sure that there were sufficient funds to see that carried through.
Very
That would
nice.
be the first thing I would do.
Yeah, I think most countries would benefit from that. Yeah, like investment in education in general,
Absolutely.
definitely.
And especially investment in female education, you teach a woman and you teach a family.
Wonderful. We do have a couple more questions, and I just want to point out, guys, just be careful with making sure you always use the past simple with the second conditional. So, really good question, Sarah. What would you do? I would just say, what would you do if you had the possibility to fly? Okay, so, and then Marco also has another question, which is, what would you do if you, I would say, what would you do if you could uh, take, or I guess to make, well, if you could make all decisions about our planet. Okay, so just make sure you put that in the past. So wonderful. All right, guys, we're gonna move on to the next one. Really good questions. If we have time in the end, you guys can keep asking us questions. But I really appreciate all the creativity and the curiosity. But we do want to talk also about the third conditional. So let's move on to the next one. Okay. Now, third conditional. Michelle, do you want to tackle this one and we'll give some examples?
Sure. So the third conditional is used for situations that are not possible at all because they've happened in the past. And you're talking about imaginary consequences, right? For example, if I had been richer, in, well, I'd be here, honestly.
You would still be in
So
Italy, yeah.
I'd still be here.
Good, good.
Okay, Tiago, why don't you hit us up
Yeah,
with
that's
an
it. So you
example?
just have to, so basically to use the third conditional, as Michelle was saying, it's for things in the past. And it's basically the opposite of reality. So just think of something that was true for you in the past. For instance, as I said in the beginning, I was born in Brazil. So that happened. So if I want to use the third conditional, I just have to take that and make it the opposite. So if I hadn't been born in Brazil, I wouldn't have learned Portuguese, for example. So all you have to do is make it the opposite. And we use this a lot when we're talking about regrets. So the form of the third conditional is right here. So if past perfect, and past perfect, just in case, depending on your level, maybe you've never seen the past perfect before, it's just had and past participle. So if I had been, and then would have and past participle again. If we give some examples, I think it makes more sense. Here we go. If I had studied harder, I would have graduated. So see, in this case, I didn't study hard and I didn't graduate. And I regret this now. So I think about the opposite. If I had studied, I would have graduated. If I had been born in England, I would have been fluent. If I had, sleep in, here we go. We talked about this earlier. If I hadn't slept in, I wouldn't have been late to class. So take a situation, something that happened, make it the opposite, and you're good to go. Okay, do let us know if you have any questions here, guys. We can do some other examples here as well. Here, Michelle, let me ask you this first question. So how would your day, so today, how would today have been different if you had woken up 2 hours late this morning?
Today wouldn't have been different if I woke up 2 hours later, because I woke up at 8 and I didn't have anything to do until the afternoon, the early afternoon. So it was fine.
So it
I
didn't
would
make a
have been
difference.
fine.
Cool.
I would have been fine.
Nice. We do have a couple examples here. Mauro saying, if I had had your mobile number, I would have called you. Yes. And yeah, had can sound a little strange, but it's perfectly correct. If I had had your number, I would have called you. So see, but I didn't have your number, so I didn't call you. Nice. Lucy, if I had booked tickets in this period, we couldn't have taken the flight anyway. Absolutely not. Yes. In fact, I just got an email yesterday from EasyJet about one of my flights being canceled. So yes, good.
Mm.
All right. Maybe here, Michelle, if
Okay,
you want to ask me the next one.
sure. How would today have been? How would your life have been different if you hadn't moved to Italy?
So if I hadn't moved to Italy, I probably wouldn't have become a teacher. The reason I became a teacher was to actually move to Italy. It was one of the easiest ways to come here. So I don't know, maybe I wouldn't have become a teacher if I hadn't moved here. So yeah, we have a couple more examples. Salvatore, if I had been born a woman, maybe in the singular, if I've been born a woman, I would always wear high heels. Yeah, good example, Salvatore. Now, this is an example of a mixed conditional. So that's when you have the
Mm.
situation in the past and how it affects the present. And so we take the first half of the third and the second half of the second. Nice job. Quite advanced. Yeah. We do this in level 10, by the way. Good job. Julia, if I hadn't burned my dinner last night, I would have eaten, forget the past participle, I would have eaten a hamburger. Good. So you burned your hamburger last night, essentially.
Beatrice says, if I hadn't gone to Madrid for Erasmus, I wouldn't have met my boyfriend.
There you go.
Okay, fantastic. Fabio, if I had, okay, so over here, if I had born in England, I wouldn't have studied English. So we're missing the past participle. If I had
Yeah,
been born,
yeah, because it's to be born. So yeah, as Michelle said, if I had been born.
if I had been born in England, I wouldn't have studied English. Or I would have, right?
Maybe he would, because then if he had been born in English, he would have been fluent, so he wouldn't have studied.
Right.
I guess it
Right now.
depends. You would have studied in school early, but maybe not now. So here's like where the mixed conditional could work. If I had
Yes.
been born in English, I wouldn't study English now. So good mixed.
Fantastic.
We already
Pierre
did
Louis
one.
says, if I had woken up 2 hours late this morning, I wouldn't have had the time to read the newspaper. Fantastic. Good work.
Nicely done. Nicely done. Okay. I guess here maybe let's see if there's anything. I guess we can use like some of our own questions, right, Michelle? I guess they're more interesting. And guys, now
Definitely.
let's open this up to you as well. So any questions in the third or even mixed conditional, if you want to try, go ahead and ask us. So just a quick tip. So remember, we have to invert when you're asking the question. So I don't know. What would you have done if you hadn't? Da-da-da. Okay. I know it's a little bit difficult sometimes to think of examples in the third conditional because you really have to know the person that you're asking. So just think about things about Michelle and I that you believe are true, and then make it the opposite. Let's see, Robbie, you have an example here. If I hadn't found my job, I would have moved to another country. Yeah, good. Yeah, and that's a nice example also, Robbie, of how it's not always related to regret. See, in this case, well, maybe you regret it, but I don't think so, right? You're happy that you found a job. So that also works. Very nice. Okay, Michelle, I have a question for you. I actually wrote them down here before.
Okay.
So, what would you have done if the government hadn't decided to shut down the country?
Ooh. Okay. I would have started working from home nonetheless, because my biggest fear was not becoming sick myself. Because I think people around our age have a lower tendency to catch the flu, etc., etc. But the people in danger are the people you come across, the older generation. So I would have preferred to stay at home than risk infecting someone. So I would have figured out a way to work from home.
To
What
work from
about
home
you?
anyway.
Yeah.
Yes, I think so too. I also would have asked our manager to collaborate from home in one way or another, even if the government hadn't decided to shut down the country. Let's see,
Yeah.
Lucy, you have another example there. Our lives. Now, again, here we would say our lives would have been, right? Our lives would have been different if we had. So you just inverted, right? So the had, so the past participle, or sorry, the past perfect goes with if. And then the would have goes as the result. So the result, right, our lives would have been different if we had been born in Africa. Yeah, just like Michelle wrote down there. Sorry, I guess we keep clicking it. Yeah, good. All right. Nice. Do you have a question for me, Michelle?
I do have a question for you. If you could go back in time, where would you go?
Perfect. This is a second conditional question. So if I could go back in time, where would I go? Let me think. It's a good question because I feel like if I had a time machine, I would go to the future actually. But if I could go somewhere in the past, I would go. Yes, I would go like to like the Renaissance times. I think that'd be quite interesting to see all the kind of explosion of art and literature, etc. Or I would go back to kind of like prehistorical times to see how people actually lived back then. Yeah, so one of the two. Let's see, Lorenzo. He has a question, an example. If I had graduated in marketing, yeah. So if I had graduated, because graduate is a verb. If I had graduated in marketing, I wouldn't have job issues. Mixed conditional. Good job. Good job. So if something had happened in the past, this would happen in the present. Nicely done. All right, guys, go ahead and try asking us some third conditional questions. I know it's not so easy, but try, even if it's not, the information is not true, just the example. That's what we care about mostly, the grammar, the structure. Okay, let me ask you another one, Michelle, in the meantime. Ta, 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 ta. Now, where would you have moved to if you hadn't come to Italy?
That's a good question. I was applying for grad school. So I was looking for something very specific, and my options were Spain, Australia, back to the UK, and Italy. So I would have probably gone to either Spain or Australia because I wanted to try something different from London.
Ah, is that where you were before? So you did
Mhm.
this was your bachelor's that you did in London?
Yes.
I see. Great. Cool.
Okay. I have one for you. What would you have done if your family asked you to move back?
Oh, if my family had asked me to move back, I would have said no. Because I do like life in Italy, but in Europe in general. So yes, I would have said no. Unfortunately, I would have told them to come visit me here more often. That would have been a better solution.
A better
Let's see. So
compromise.
Jordana is asking us a question. So,
Uh-huh.
what would you have done? Now, very good question, Jordana. So, I instead of saying didn't, I would just say hadn't. So it's past perfect.
Hmm.
So, what would you have done if you hadn't moved to Milan? Very nice. Now, ooh, that's a good one. If I hadn't moved to Milan, I probably would have moved to Bologna because that's my favorite Italian city. So I probably would have
Oh,
done that. What about you, Michelle?
beautiful.
If you hadn't moved to Milan, what other city would you have moved to?
I was looking at Spain and I was looking at Australia. So in Spain, I was looking at Barcelona, and in Australia, actually, I was looking at Queensland, which is where some of the fires were. So, hallelujah.
Yeah, it's either fire or Corona. Can't
Yeah, I
escape it.
mean,
No, Fabio has a good question, and then we're going to look at the other. I know that Pierluigi and Salvatore also have some questions, so let's just do one at
yep.
a time. Now, Fabio's asking us, can you explain what is the mixed conditional? Yes, Fabio, absolutely. So, the third conditional, as we said, it's something in the past that didn't happen, and I'm thinking about if it had happened, what would have been the result. So, everything is in the past, right? For instance, if I hadn't moved to Italy, I wouldn't have studied Italian. Because, see, I moved to Italy in the past and I studied Italian in the past. So everything is in the past. If I hadn't moved to Italy, I wouldn't have studied Italian. The mixed conditional, I would still use the first half if I hadn't moved to Italy, but then I think of the consequence not in the past, but the consequence in the present. So if I hadn't moved to Italy, I wouldn't be here right now. I wouldn't be talking to you right now. So that's the basic difference between them. So it's called mixed conditional because you mix the if part of the third with the consequence part of the second. Hope that makes sense, but if it doesn't, let us know.
Pierre Luigi says, what would you have done if the coronavirus hadn't arrived in Milan? Perfect, good job. We would have been at work, just working.
Yeah. And so that's a good example here, Pierluigi, because see, if you're using the word now, it would be better, maybe in this case, to use the mixed conditional. So see, what would you uh, do now if the coronavirus hadn't? Or what would you have done yesterday if the corona hadn't arrived? So that's a nice, just kind of like two examples to illustrate the difference.
Okay,
Okay,
Lorenzo said.
and Salvatore,
Mhm.
as what would you have done if one day you had woken up? Okay, so had. If you had woken up in a past time when you were young. Oh gosh. If I had woken up in the past, I would have assumed that someone drugged me. I wouldn't have believed it. I don't know. Would have been very strange.
Okay, and Lorenzo says, what would you have done if you had won the lottery?
Great example.
Robbie says, which job would you have done if you hadn't your actual one? Okay, so a
Maybe
few
just a verb.
corrections. Sorry?
Yeah, maybe she's just missing a verb, right?
Yeah, that's it. Good effort.
I would say, which job, here, I'll write it down for you, Robbie. So, which job would you have done if you hadn't started? So, you just need a verb there. If you hadn't started, your current one, okay? Because in English, we use current for now. If you hadn't started your current one, but nice example. It's a really good question, Robbie. If I hadn't started my teaching job, oof, God, I was so lost. I probably would have worked for some NGO or some other organization. See, I studied international relations at university, but I have to be honest, even if I graduated, but I still didn't quite know exactly what I wanted to do. So actually, teaching was a really nice, to have something to do, and then it turned out that I really enjoyed it. So that worked out. Okay, Robbie, perfect.
Yes, absolutely.
All right, guys, we have just a couple more minutes left. So if you want to try, really take a risk, just ask us some questions because I know it's a little bit tricky. And if you guys are in level 8 or level 9, really don't worry. This is all very new to you with the third conditional. We studied this in level 10. All right. So if you've never seen this before, just consider it an introduction. And if you have seen it, hopefully this was just a good practice, get some examples, etc.
Okay, with that, while the students ask us their questions, should we do a quick roundup of everything we've gone through so far?
Yep. So here, let's do you want to like alternate? I'll do first, you do second, third, mixed.
Sure.
So the first conditional, which we haven't practiced too much today, that is for situations that are real, that are possible, things that are not hypothetical. Okay, especially if I'm talking about specific events. I could say, if it rains tomorrow, I will stay at home. Something like that, something quite realistic.
Perfect. The second conditional is used to talk about impossible or hypothetical situations. Don't forget that it can just be situations that are rare, not necessarily situations that are impossible to achieve, just highly unlikely, and their possible outcomes.
Wonderful. Then in the third conditional, we're talking about things that are all in the past. The situation is in the past, and the result is also in the past. Okay, so basically, just think about something that was true, whether it's a positive or a negative thing in the past, and make it the opposite. And then think about how that would have affected your life back then.
And in the last one, the mixed conditional, we use this to talk about the past and the present result. right? So your first clause is the past perfect, and your second clause would be the present.
Yep, exactly.
Okay, Fabio says, um, what wouldn't have you bought if you could have gone in the past?
So here there are a few corrections we got to make here. So so I guess this is in the past, right, Fabio? I think you want to ask this in the third conditional. So we would say, what would you have bought, or what wouldn't you have bought? That's also fine. That's if it's a negative. What wouldn't you have bought if you had gone back in the past? But then just to kind of make more sense of it, I guess it'd be better to put it in an affirmative. What would you have bought, right?
Yeah, if you, but
Grammatically, it's okay to say wouldn't, but I think it just makes more sense with would here. So what would you have bought if you had gone back back in the past, or to the past? Sorry, that works better. Yeah, good. See, if I had gone back to the past, if I had traveled back in the past, I would have bought. I would have bought food, actually. I'm curious to compare some dishes. Like, were they the same in the past as they are now?
that's a good one. Food. I would have bought clothes. Definitely, get some high-end couture pieces for really
Exactly.
cheap.
And it's like real vintage. You can, like
Yeah,
sell them for mad bucks nowadays.
exactly. Okay, with that, unfortunately, our time is up, guys. Thank you so much for joining us. I had a great time. T.
Absolutely, guys. Thank you so much for joining. Thanks for participating. And I know that this is not the easiest, right? The conditionals can be a little bit tricky. We got to take it slow, all right? Especially if this is your first time, especially with the third conditional. Don't worry about it. Try to kind of practice a little bit at home as well. Since you know yourselves better, it's much easier to ask third conditional questions, because it's hard to ask if you don't know the person. So think things about yourself. For example, I moved to Italy, right? If I hadn't moved to Italy, this morning I woke up at 8 a.m. If I hadn't woken up at 8 a.m. So that's it. Just think of something that is true, make it the opposite. All right, guys, thank you so much.
Okay, guys.
Uh,
Bye.
Great. I'll see you guys around. Bye-bye.